Bem-vindo ao show, estamos ao vivo no ar. Vozes de longe, sabedoria a compartilhar. Sintonize a vibração, sinta o pulso do ritmo. Ritmos globais se misturam, ouça o mundo dançar.
A linguagem não tem limites, histórias se revelam. De todos os cantos, novas narrativas nos embalam. O coração da terra em cada som encontrado. Reúnam-se amigos, vozes globais ecoando.
Cafuka Talk, onde mundos se conectam. Línguas diferentes, mas com respeito se projetam. Junte-se à jornada que vamos trilhar. Nesta centelha vibrante de podcasts iluminar. De continente a continente voamos. Dialetos e culturas que nunca escondemos. Sinta o ritmo, deixe fluir. Cafuka Talk é o lugar para ir. Ecos da terra por harmonia. Batidas africanas com sinfonia global que contagia. Mergulhe na essência de cada nota. No Cafuka Talk sonhos ganham rota. Cafuka Talk, onde mundos se conectam. Línguas diferentes, mas com respeito se projetam. Junte-se à jornada que vamos trilhar. Nesta centelha vibrante da podcast iluminar.
Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, and welcome to Cafuka Talk. I'm Hélia, co-hosting with Ivanick, and I'm excited to bring you insightful conversation, expert advice, and engaging stories from global voices to foster enriching debates and new perspectives on relevant topics. And each episode we will dive into different topics, can be business, technology, health, wellness, science, education, to help you stay informed and inspired from people from the islands like us. And today we have an exciting discussion on global health, leadership and strategy, mastering stakeholder engagement, featuring my beloved and good friend, Dr. Cindi Lewis. So sit back, relax, very relaxed, and let's get started. And if you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe and share with others who might love it too. Over to you, Ivanick.
Thank you. Hi, Cindi Lewis. It's very nice to have you here. And it's kept me thinking, based on your expertise in global health, biomedical sciences, strategy, and executive leadership, I was thinking, if you have had a dynamic career spanning science, global health, and strategic leadership, how do you personally define success? What is success for you? What does it mean for you? What it means for you?
I would say that success is when you have the people around you, or even broader than you, say that you've made a difference. I think that at the end of the day, when you enter into someone's life, either professionally or personally, you want to know that you've taken them from one place to the next in a positive direction. And for me, this is the core of global health. It's really thinking about the well-being of other people and doing that en masse on a large scale, and really thinking through how to get people to a place of betterment. So I would say that that's success. It's when we roll something out within that space and people can say, yes, I'm better, I'm doing better, my family's better, my community is elevated from the efforts that you and your team have made.
Oh, it's very nice. And does success defines you?
Yes, I would say so. I think it's the driving force of everything that I do. Because if you don't have people at the center of what you're doing, especially in a field like global health, I think you'll get sidetracked. I think there is a lot of distraction in the world today, but also in any field where politics will intertwine. It's easy to lose sight of the real goal, and the real goal is the n=1. It's the person that you're trying to impact. So for me, it's really the thing that keeps me anchored, the thing that keeps me focused, and the thing that gives me energy.
Oh, well, I don't know if you have.
Thank you, Cindi. We know that you're coming also from an island like us, Trinidad
Yes.
and Tobago, and good to have you here. And I know that we have this different time zone now. And do you think coming from an island where you're coming from, Trinidad and Tobago, shaped your vision about why you are interested in the global health? How was that transition?
I definitely, because I think Trinidad and Tobago, the culture is so inclusive. I think it's very much a people are people type culture. I think you get the sense of interacting with people is very important, listening, speaking, engaging, and helping. I mean, I grew up in that society where if someone can help you, they will, and it's not quid pro quo. They don't need anything in return, and I think this is really something that for me is fundamental to how I approach global health. And there is an ease with which I think Caribbean people interact with people from different cultures. And whether it's through carnival or festivities that we have, I think we're used to different ethnicities, we're used to different cultural backgrounds, we're used to different languages. And so when you enter into an international space, you already have sort of that openness to have those discussions, and you cannot do global health without understanding that dynamism of the different people that you're interacting with. So for sure, I would say it influenced it. And I think maybe one other point is that growing up in the Caribbean or a place like Trinidad and Tobago, you know that resources are not always abundant. You have to think creatively. You've got to be using what you have. And I think that inbuilt resilience and creativity that you get from being in a situation where not everything is just handed, is there and available for everyone, I think drives solution-oriented thinking within the space of global health. So for me, all of those things coming together, I think have, for me, formed a very strong foundation to be successful in global health.
Okay, thank you for your answer. I'm just keep thinking. When you define yourself to others, you start from what you do or from where you come from.
I think somehow I always start with, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. And I do because I'm really proud to be from this country. I love my country. I think for a small twin island republic, we get out there. I mean, I feel like there's nowhere in the world you cannot find a person from Trinidad and Tobago. And I think as a country, we've done so well in terms of education, in terms of exposing our people to something which is beyond themselves. And there is an inbuilt sort of passion and creativity. So when I start to introduce myself, for me, this is my anchor. I want to start by letting people know this beautiful country that I call home and that I will always call home. And then I go into, okay, this is what I do and this is why I do it. But for me, that's the right order, because I am no one without the identity that my country gave to me. And so for me, it has to be sort of the first step when I meet someone.
Wow.
That is great. It's good that you share your experience coming from an island. Even us, we are in the small, tiny island in Africa, and for several times living abroad, people sometimes confused. They sometimes ask whether São Tomé and Príncipe is Trinidad and Tobago, and all the time, because they only know Caribbean islands. You made a very good point. Sometimes our identity, regardless where we go, what we do, it's always important. Always important. And I know that you've been involved with the diverse actors from government, NGO, donors, private sector. So what are some key challenges in aligning their interests, and how do you overcome them?
I think, and I think this is probably one of the fundamental challenges that we face in global health. So I'll answer that question in two parts by saying one is that you cannot have global health without everybody at the table. There is a term called the whole of society approach, and this is really crucial because the truth is, for solutions to be implemented effectively, everyone has to take, has a part. Private sector has a role, governments have a role, private citizens have a role, academia has a role. And so I think the most effective solutions is when everybody's at the table. And I can dig a little bit deeper, but just to say, the second part of that question is that, generally speaking, all of those actors have their own agenda. They have their own priorities. They have their own challenges. They have their own constraints in which they have to operate within. So when you bring all of those people to the table, more or less, getting consensus and alignment, I think, is difficult, because even if I think they agree on sort of the fundamental principle of, okay, we've got to help, let's say, this particular target audience, if we're talking about, let's say,
I don't know, it was us.
in which they want to approach that.
It's her.
Coming back, technical.
Oh.
No, it's back.
Did I lose you guys for a second?
Yes, but you're about to get
the same happened
on.
with us too.
So
yes,
just to make sure you're hearing me.
Yes,
Okay.
now we can do it. Yeah.
Okay. So just to say that even if people are fundamentally aligned on kind of the outcome, their approach to how we get to the outcome is sometimes very different. A professor is going to think very differently from a community health worker, who's going to think very differently from somebody who's, let's say, in the pharmaceutical industry. So the way in which I think you overcome that is, number one, you've got to align on exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Everybody's got to get on board with the vision. And even that articulation of the vision, I think, can be a bit challenging, but I think once you get to that point, that's your first building block. The second thing is that in terms of the means to get there, it takes someone, or maybe it's a group of people who can appreciate and hear all of the different perspectives and translate that into what we would call the consensus solution. So for me, that's the second thing. It's understanding the viewpoint of all of the players and then translating that into a solution which essentially capitalizes on the strengths of each of those different actors. The third piece is really agreeing on, once you have your sort of approach, what's your timeline to get there? Because time is very, very important. I think for some of us, or in the multilateral world, the distance to get to something is very long, whereas they want to get there tomorrow. So I think it's also agreeing on sort of the timeline of things, but to do that, you have to appreciate the constraints of each partner, right? I mean, if you're bridging a consensus solution between, let's say, even just private sector and the multilateral world, it is going to take time. A private sector company, maybe just one or two individuals have to say yes, and then you go. In the multilateral world, you've got countries who have to come together to agree. So in the case of WHO, when you have 194 member state countries who have to sit at a table and agree, it's not going to be a 1 day, 2 day type situation. They've got to come together. So I think it's not easy, but you can absolutely get there. It's aligning on that vision. It's hearing everybody's perspectives and coming up with a solution that essentially gathers the strengths of all of those actors. But thirdly, really appreciating the constraints so you can set a timeline that's really feasible.
So it's a very nice answer, very complete answer. Thank you. I'm curious about how do you balance strategic decision making with emotional weight of working in the public health crisis? Because it's very tough, and sometimes how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I think this is a tricky one, because certainly you cannot do this job without passion. You cannot do it without emotion. One must feel very deeply for the audience that you're trying to impact and work with. Maybe a good example of this is, for the last few years, we've had, I think the WHO has responded, I would say, more than 60 what we would call grade 3 level emergencies. And this means that they're acute, very intensive. You're talking anything from, earthquakes like what impacted Syria and Turkey, and that took out maybe more than 30,000 people in the first couple of weeks, to what's happening in Gaza. And so I think working in an environment where every time you turn around, there is a crisis, and there's a lot of people, you're talking millions of people, Sudan, I mean, millions of people, Yemen, Syria, Haiti. I mean, you've got to appreciate what they're going through, because if you don't understand the challenges that that group is facing, you won't actually adequately tailor the solutions that you have to make with the different partners to address that for them. So there is a piece where you have to use that emotion to fuel what you're doing, but at the same time, you've got to have enough objective distance, because you've got to be able to think very clearly. And sometimes you can't act in the heat of emotion, right? Especially if you're, for example, trying to find diplomatic solutions, or you're trying to talk with funders, or you're trying to talk with member states who may or may not want to help. So you've got to be that kind of person that feels the depth of the emotion, but has the strength, and I would say the discipline, to compartmentalize it, to allow you to have that objective distance, to find the solutions with the various cross-section of players, so that you can do your job effectively. And that balance is not easily struck. And I think it's not so straightforward, the how you get to that road, but that's where you need to be in order to be effective. But both both
And
have to be there.
what have you done on your personal life to keep that balance? Because as navigating through all these complex environments, it must be also very heavy emotionally, as you mentioned earlier. But what exactly some tips, things that you've done that helped you cope throughout navigating through this complex, say, environment?
Maybe I would think of about 3 things. One is that I'm a Christian, and for me, faith is very important. Everybody might have a different faith-based system, or for some people, it's meditation or something like this. But you need something which anchors you, something which refreshes you, which sort of fills you up when you're sort of feeling overwhelmed and everything is coming towards you. And for me, that is my faith in God. And when I sort of immerse myself in His Word and sort of that, even gospel music, it's something that I think gives me a sense of release, a sense of peace, a sense of there is hope. So for me, that's the first thing. The second thing is that you have to have the discipline to know when to cut off. There are times when I put my phone on notice to, it could just be for 1 hour. And in that 1 hour, I will do something which is somehow centering to myself. I love dancing, I love writing, and I love my friends. So I think if I take that 1 hour and I just completely shut off everything, and I'm just focused on what is right in front of me and being present, I think that gives me, I would say, some level of strength, which I can then take and face when I need to face the things that I have to in my career. And possibly the third thing is, you have to understand there is a humility to all of this. there is so much of what you cannot
Yes.
change. There are things you can change, and you fight with everything that you have to change that, but there are things you cannot. And so for me, the third thing is embracing the humility of that reality. And in that, there is a
Yes.
peace that comes with it, that you know that you've done everything that you possibly can do, but there is a piece which you must release to the elements because it's not within your control. So for me, those three things coming together allow me the ability to create distance, but at the same time preserve my compassion for the people that I'm working with and for.
Very good.
Well, I really appreciate your words, and I know that it's very difficult for normal people to have this kind of distance because somehow uh, you're doing something that you love, you want to do more, and accept the reality that you cannot change. It's very stoic. I admire people like you that can do it, and I'm aware that it's very difficult. So uh,
It is.
do you when you're dealing with this kind of situation that it's hard, I know, what make you feel human about it? It's like I don't know, I need to complete what I want to tell you. It's like what make humanity human, what make people believe, because I know I did some engagement here, people in communities, and most of time you are bringing a solution and you think that is the best solution, and then you are dealing with a lot of cultural environment, people that believe that we should do it one way and you coming with a new way. And sometimes I will confess, I come with some I don't know, the idea that my idea is the best one, and then I deal with people that okay, we don't cope with it, we don't care about it. And how do you feel when you're in this kind of crisis, one solution and one cultural resistance to it? How do you deal with it?
And there's even a third part to your question, which is really preserving the humanity of what you do. So I will answer it in all three parts from a story. So when I was I think maybe my second year of graduate school, um, one of my professors wanted to do some work out in Leh Ladakh, which is one of the northernmost cities in India at the base of the Himalayas. And this is a very interesting place. You have sort of Chinese, Nepalese, and Indian sort of cross-secting because it's almost very close to that border also with Kashmir. And you also have three different ethnicities coming, not ethnicity, well, yes, but also religious groups. You have Buddhism, you have Islam, and you have also Hinduism. So it's very culturally diverse, lots of interplay there between the different groups of people and religions. And we went there really to understand what is the usage of tobacco. We wanted to implement a public health program about the impact of tobacco usage, which was quite prevalent in this area. And the thing about it is, we could have gone in with all of our ideas and our solutions, but that is not what we did. There is a principle in research called community-based participatory research. And this CBPR method is something which I hold to even to this day. And that is when you are designing solutions for someone, you do it with that someone. So you begin that process really by asking the question of the person who you are trying to have an impact on. So what we did is we did a series of interviews with a number of different people, not just heads of the community, but I sat myself in shops, with people who were selling tobacco products. And one conversation comes to mind where it was just supposed to be 10, 15 minutes. And I spent 3 hours talking with a shopkeeper and just understanding what's his daily life, why is he selling, what's his family like, you know, why use tobacco in the first place. And it was fascinating. I mean, I think I learned things that I've never even thought of. And I'm really proud to say that through this exercise of active listening, and really being intentional about it, we developed a program that was implemented in the secondary schools, which is still active today. And we also developed a partnership between the health department of Leh and my university at that time. But I think that was only possible because of that initial respect for the persons that we were dealing with, wanting and being intentional about understanding where they're coming from and creating a solution that works. So to your question, how do you deal with that in that crisis? You've got to be humble. Because if you start from the perspective of, I know what's best, believe me, I've seen that approach and it doesn't work. So there is a humbling of yourself, but at the same time, there is a marriage of your expertise, because you also know what works elsewhere, right? They may not know that. So I think you bring ideas, but you still listen to what they're saying, and you're co-creating. And that's where the sweet spot is, to make something which not just works in that moment while you're there, but is sustained far long after you've gone. And I think the first part of your question, which talks about the humanity, how do you preserve this? Well, Dr. Mike Ryan, who is the Deputy Director General of the World Health Organization and also the Executive Director of the WHO's Emergencies Program, he says something which I will forever take with wherever I go, which is N=1. I think because we work with so many people, there is the temptation to slide into looking at groups of people. You look at numbers and you see 1 million has died, or 5 million are affected with this, that, and the other. But he says, no, N=1. It is remembering that each person, they have stories, they have a family, they have unique circumstances about what they're doing. And this is what I said even at the very beginning of this conversation. You've got to keep the focus on the person. Because if you start thinking in aggregate, you lose humanity very easily. Because you start thinking, okay, well, out of, a population of, let's say, the United States, 330 million, only 5% are affected. And you're like, okay, well, it's 5%. But you can't think like that. That 5%, in that 5%, there are people with brothers and sisters and, children and that kind of thing. So the anchor to all of this is the focus on the individual while you're doing a solution that is scaled.
No, definitely. That's very powerful what you just said. And I believe it's one of the reasons that you kept also focused on yourself and focus on your goals, focus on everything that you do. And I know that you navigate all the time in such a complex environment. And beyond this, attending very also challenging events. It can be G20 or UN General Assembly. So navigating all this and working closely with the global health executives and policymakers, how do you approach difficult conversation or negotiation in stakeholders' engagements? We will share some examples of several events that you attended and with very high senior stakeholders. But how have you approached such a difficult conversation, or sometimes when you want to convince or convey a message when you engage with those stakeholders?
I think probably one thing to think about, regardless of the level of the stakeholder, whether they're a head of state or head of an organization, or it's a community health worker, or let's say somebody in civil society who's advocating, a youth champion, all these different levels of individuals. First and foremost, you have to do your homework. I think you've got to understand what is important to the person you're speaking to. So, and you should come into the conversation with that information in your mind, that, if, for example, in this meeting that you're showing here, we're discussing antimicrobial resistance. And for example, the Prime Minister of Barbados, Prime Minister Motley, Her Excellency, antimicrobial resistance is huge for her. She lost a family member to this. So I think if you were to have a conversation, it's one of the things that you keep in your mind. So doing your homework before entering these conversations is quite important. But even if you don't have the chance to, sometimes conversations are not so planned, this, for example, that you're showing here is a planned bilateral with the president of the European Investment Bank. So we have the time to, put our points together and understand. But sometimes you have ad hoc meetings. And so for me, the second tip is really thinking about being in a listening mode, as opposed to going in with, oh, I want to say this and that and the other. And particularly for myself, as I would say, not so senior professional, I was looked at very much sometimes like a younger person in this scene. When I approach somebody who is more senior, or even a youth, they're in a field, of themselves, I want to listen. I think I've got to listen first, because that's how you learn. But it's also the key to which opens the door to the conversation, when people really feel genuinely that you're in a place of openness and receptivity and active listening. So for me, that's the second thing. The third thing is you've got to have a little bit of courage. Here, I mean, I don't know this prime minister, but I felt that he was from an island. Antigua and Barbuda is just down the road from Trinidad and Tobago. I actually have a very good friend from Antigua and Barbuda. So I literally said to him, hi, I'm Cindi Lewis, and I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, and I've always wanted to visit. I have a very close friend from there, so I'm going to make it out. And it was very simple, but he responded. And I think sometimes one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that people in authority are not as unapproachable as you think. I think some people put them up on this very huge pedestal, and you think to yourselves, they're next to God somehow. and so you cannot just, extend your hand and say something. And that's really, really not true. You have the ability to be, I would say, to go up and say something. I did this also with President Macron, and I remember my colleague shivering in the back, not wanting to do it, but you've got to have a little bit of bravery, and just make that call and approach someone. For me, those are the three things that I think enable me to, I would say, approach, but also navigate those conversations. It's doing your homework. It's listening. It's having a sense of bravery. But maybe the fourth thing I would add is you want to leave these conversations with something concrete. Many of the people that we're engaging with, they're super busy. So while it's really nice to just to be able to say hi and hello, you want to make use of that time. So keep in your mind something that you want to ask and something that you want to agree on as a next step with this individual, because you want to make use of that 5 minutes. Sometimes that's all you have. Sometimes all you have is the distance between walking from one room to the next. And in my capacity, when I was working for the Director General, one of the things that I did a lot of was preparing what we would call strategic briefs. And in those briefs, you would think about what's the one thing or two things that we want to get out of this meeting, and we can't leave this meeting without it. So That's a really, I would say, very important point when you're going to meet anyone. And I love this. Sorry, it's a sidebar. But just if you flip back to it, the one before, this was a great team picture. We had just come out from the World Health Assembly, and what you're seeing here is the meetings ahead of the World Health Assembly. And maybe one thing to demonstrate here is that you have a lot of different groups at this table. They're all within the context of WHO, but they're coming from different departments, different regions, different countries. And just to say, you can't do global health without having representation at the table. And just in this one picture alone, you have every national, every region covered. You have myself coming from the Caribbean. You have Dr. Chikwe Egwezu coming from Nigeria. You have Michael Ryan, head of emergencies, coming from Ireland. You have Simeon Bennett, who is a speechwriter, coming from Australia. You have Sophia coming from Germany. Wow. You have Hera coming from Egypt. I mean, what a melu just all in this picture. I've really enjoyed that level of diversity, and that is how you get to the best solutions. You've got to have the different perspectives, the different languages, the different backgrounds, expertise coming together to really center on something that is going to work for
I do hear you sometimes when you mention you have to have courage, you have to be concrete, and know what you want and how. But at the same time, you have to create sort of a trust and credibility. But how you build that trust and maintain trust with such a high level decision makers?
Trust is the currency that it's not seen, but it's probably the most powerful and the thing which has to be there. And trust is certainly earned. One has to demonstrate certain things. So I think the first thing in building trust is respect. I think both parties must feel respected by one another, because respect also dictates how you engage and treat with that person, also what they've said to you. So for me, respect is the building block of trust. The second thing is confidentiality. In a lot of these, high profile conversations, there's going to be things that, they're going to say and intimate to you that may not necessarily be out there in the public domain. You've got to demonstrate that if that conversation happens with you, it's not going to end up all over the place. And, demonstrating that level of discretion and confidentiality is fundamental for trust. Nobody wants to have said something to somebody and then you hear it, somewhere else. So for me, that's really very cool. The third thing is around following through on what you say. People trust you if they can rely on you. If you say, I'm going to implement this program, I'm going to make this decision, I'm going to bring this person on board, I'm going to complete task Y or Z by such a time, and you get it done, not just once, not twice, not 3 times, but you show a pattern of delivering on what you say you're going to do, it builds trust. And it's also how you sustain it, right? Because the one thing I know is that when I trust someone, I don't have to think as much. I know that they're going to get something done, or there is an ease with which I'm sharing something with you because I feel comfortable to know that if I say something, it's there. And it's the same principle that applies in these executive conversations. So for me, trust is really about respect. It's about respecting, it's about confidentiality and keeping someone's confidence. It's about delivering on what you say every single time. And it's really being, I would say the fourth thing possibly is around being intentional about maintaining a relationship with the person that you're engaging with, active communication, actively following up on things so that you kind of keep that momentum and that sort of touch base with the person.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Okay.
And Yeah, in a world that constantly pushes for productivity, how do you think professionals can maintain their health, both mental and physical, without compromising career growth? How can we do it?
And that's not an easy thing to do. You guys have been showing pictures about the UN General Assembly and some of the meetings that take place there. Just to give you some context, um, these days are long. You may start your day at 5 a.m. and not finish until midnight. And that's just possibly attending engagements. There's maybe some in between prep, strategizing, and things like that. But if you do that, you will be exhausted.
That's
So, just to give you some context, I think there is always a trade-off. People talk about balancing,
Yes.
health, balancing your career growth, balancing your children if you have a family, and all of these kinds of things. Um, Maybe it's controversial a little bit to say that I don't think that you should try to achieve balance. You will never probably get it there, because balance dictates almost a sort of
hmm
equitable distribution of time.
yeah,
And I do not think this is exactly possible. There's always going to be a trade-off. I think there should be maybe more the setting aside of time for each of the areas of your life, where you really focus on one area or the other. But it's a little bit
yeah,
unrealistic to think that you will get to equity in terms of the distribution of your time. So that being said, um, your health is your currency. If you're sick, you cannot do anything. So you have to decide. There will be times, like as I talked about at the UN General Assembly or the World Health Organization Health Assembly, where it's intensive and you've got to push. You're probably going to get 5-6 hours of sleep per night, and that's fine, because there's going to be another period where I can take my step back and I can focus more on going to the gym or doing something else, or spending time with my friends. So I'm
Yeah.
not grinding like that, for 3 years consistently. In between the year, I'm having some rhythm. This is a very intense moment. And there are times when that intensity is going on for some time, for example, during the COVID-19 pandemic. But there are times when you need to take that step back and do take care of your health, and you've got to see the signs. So for me, one of the strategies and I don't know if it's a strategy or just really just a fact, I know myself. I know when I have to sleep. I know when, I'm coming to that place of the tank is on E and I've got to maybe refill it and recharge. So I would say there is an intentionality about growing your career and putting in the time. But at the same time, knowing yourself enough when you have to kind of pivot and put a bit more emphasis there. And Hélia will know this because we're quite close friends, but somewhere in the last summer, I started a gym group. And, because
Yeah.
there was a bit more time, and so while the first 6 months of the year, it was like, go, 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 go. The summer was salsa and spin classes and weight
Amazing.
training, and
hey,
and we had a lot of fun. And by the way, the people that we got together in this group all had full-time jobs. They all, most of them had families. So, they also recognized the need for, you know, taking and carving that time out. So you can do it, but there is an intentionality with which you do things. Um, and you've got to
Yeah.
press the pause button if you start feeling something inside of yourself that, okay, I need to do
No,
some
no, it's
self-care
going very well, very well,
or
very
family
well.
care, whichever one.
definitely. No, you're right, Cindy. Sometimes I have my management always telling me, if you're not doing for yourself, nobody will do for you. So it's up to you.
Oh,
Nobody,
absolutely. No.
nobody else. And when you look back in a few years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, 100 years, 150 years, 200 years, 300 years, 400 years, 500 years, 600 years, 700 years, 800 years, 900 years, 1000 years, 1,000 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 years, maybe you will say that, yeah, what have I done? Why shouldn't have I taken this time and do this and that? Because if you end up at the hospital, you'll be alone, honestly. Nobody at your work, your management, and unless you have a very close relationship, will come to see you. You're on your own.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. You have to do it. You have to take care of yourself. And as I said, I mean, sadly, we had back, I think, before this previous director general, we had a sitting director general who
Wow.
died in office. And that happened. That has, that's a striking reminder, right? Stress. um, it happens. It certainly happens. And, we respect and we cherish people for, in essence, giving their lives to the cause and to the mission. But we would so much have loved to have more of him at that point in time. And so I think it's also recognizing that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so you need those anchors around you, even if you don't have the self-discipline. You need at least somebody to say, okay,
Moment to break.
that's enough. You are going to take a break. And you've got to be, that person has to be respected enough that you listen. You're like, okay, I'm backing off
it's
now.
very nice. No, you're right. Let's maybe have also a break, do some like chill questions. Okay, that help us not get into very serious all the time question. That very helpful insight, Cindy. It's wonderful. I have a chance also to be your friend, and always I'm learning, constantly learning from your experience, for yourself. And I know that you're a very humble person, and it's very always good to have you and sharing also this experience to a larger audience. And so let's start. Also in Ivanick, you'll be also answering that, because I know
Cool.
that you like to answer these chill questions. So number one, let's start. If you could be a famous person for one day, who would it be and why?
Wow, that is a tough question. Possibly, let me have a very quick think. Sorry, I have to go with it. It sounds a little bit cliche, but
Whoa.
maybe Oprah, because I love Oprah's style. I love that she spends her time with people, and I think if I could be, her for one day, I imagine I would learn an incredible amount of things from people. And I understand she has amazing staff, so I think I would also learn what it's like to be a good leader, or at least some more leadership lessons from someone like her. So maybe that's one person I could.
I was expecting Michelle Obama,
I thought about her too, but certainly Oprah is in my mind.
It's a very difficult question. I have a lot of people in my mind for different reasons. No, I'm just thinking. Maybe
Socrates.
No, yeah, that's good. That's good. But I'm thinking about something very recent. Something like Kendrick Lamar at Super Bowl.
Good one.
I love the show. And I'm a big fan of karaoke. I'm the worst singer ever. But I love I love karaoke. But I don't have the talent. So I admire one that sing well. They sing well, I admire. But why Kendrick? Why Kendrick? Because of the move, maybe. But not, it's more than that. I love how, for me, the rapper, they represent something. It's like most of the ideas, they are very difficult to realize, to understand. And the rapper can tell you the same thing that you can find somewhere else in a very simple way that represent the community. Most of people, they didn't have access to like a great education to understand like Socrates, Nietzsche, Arthur Schopenhauer. It's very difficult. If you didn't have like nice background to understand it. It's very complex. But when a rapper tells you something, it's something that you rely on. You understand. You're aware of it. You know your community. You know what's going on, what's going around, and then you give some hope and you give some big lessons that is very difficult through the books. So I love it. They can say,
Yeah.
I will give you a nice example. Black Panther. Most of people they will not get involved with Black Panther party. It's more difficult to understand all the history and everything. But I know that most of people that know nothing about Black Panther party. They know about Black Panther the movie. You know, there
Yeah.
is a out to be simple. You can say, okay, is the industry taking over and sell something that is not good? Cliche. But they put some people aware of it. So it's simple and you can touch a lot of people at the same time. I don't believe that education should be so high and difficult that put you away from your people. It's the reason why I love rappers.
No, very, very good, very good. Let's no,
By the way, I
No,
also like them.
Kendrick team.
But that's an aside. But I completely hear
amazing.
you. I think they speak to the core of yourself without the frills. It just goes hard and it goes direct and it
Savage,
goes through. So
savage.
You said it
Why?
all.
love it.
No, you said it all. No, indeed, indeed. It's and very subtle. That's very, very subtle. It's very, very smart, incredibly smart. Yeah, and it's incredible. So let me go to other question because I'm aware of time. I don't want us to spend. We can divest and talk a lot about one question, but let's be very 10 seconds for each
Okay.
question. So because I know we can spend like hours talking. I know both of you and how good you are and on talking and sharing your own experience. So in 3 words, Cindy, just give me what are the best 3 words, no, the 3 words that best describe you. Just 3 words and
Mm. 3 words. Curious,
oh,
brave, and kind.
that's nice. And what's your biggest pet peeve?
Selfishness.
That's
I really, people who often only think about themselves, it comes out in so many
Yeah.
different ways. I despise
no,
this. Yeah, so yeah, I could go on, but that's probably one thing that I think about.
good, good, good. What's your favorite holiday destination and why? And if I think I will ask you the same question.
Woo! Favorite holiday destination so far, Vietnam. Um, Incredible food. The people are, yeah, their heart is like gold, at least the ones that I met. And fabulous. I mean, there's no shortage of things that you cannot see there. I mean, it's an incredible place. I don't even feel like I've scratched the
Wow.
surface.
Ivanick, share a little bit of your favorite holiday destination and why.
Maybe Capver is good. I was young. Nice. The nightclubs are great, and then I love the people too. They are very calm sometimes. Yes, and they have a nice beach around. Everything is closed like Sao Tome, but it's a better way for holidays. And then I love countries where you can do everything by walk. So I
Yeah.
love it. I love it about Cape Verde. You can do everything. You can talk with people. You can walk and go everywhere that matters for you. And
Yeah.
they know how to preserve it. So it's very good. It's very good.
That's no, that's good. That's good. Cindy, if you had to eat one meal, just one meal for the rest of your life, better be from Trinidad and Tobago, by the way. What would it be?
It is, for sure. Is it one? Can it be two?
Okay.
So I'm going to give two, but one is, it's called saltfish buljol and provisions. And saltfish buljol is essentially salted codfish, but it's sauteed with oils and pimento peppers, garlic, and some other herbs and spices, and you eat it with either potatoes or dumplings. Love it. Number one dish for me. But I'm also half Indian, so roti and curry. So curry chicken in a nice, what we call basab shat or dal puri and paratha. I mean, these two, morning, then evening, repeat. It can be happening.
Roti. Ivanick, what would be yours? Something for Pantome.
Okay, I don't know. Grilled chicken is good. I don't know. But yeah, grilled chicken, banana, I'm cool. Plantain, I'm cool. I'm very simple about food. Very simple. I keep it simple.
Good. If you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
I would say being able to speak multiple languages easily. I don't know what's the word for it. Like, when you have these polyglots, I think it's not that I'm not able to learn different languages, but I feel like I'm never able to fully master it. So if I had a skill where I could, I think I would certainly do this, because I feel like language is the door to the innermost part of people. So I would love to be able to speak much more fluently other languages.
And you, Ivanick?
If I can just keep my curiosity and that maybe increase a little bit, be very curious about several things at the same time, and keep focus, I'll be great.
That's not bad. Cindi, what's one book, movie, or TV series you always recommend?
Book and TV series. I like Schindler's List. It's a heavy topic because it's on the Holocaust, but I recommend it. I think that people must understand the base and how low human beings are able to get so that we never repeat it again. And I think oftentimes we forget that. But it's also the story of real courageous people who decided that in the face of everything, they will persevere and at great risk to their personhood, help other people. So this movie for me remains as a mastermind behind really the extreme sides of people, but in the end, the triumphant nature of humanity to survive. So for me, absolutely recommend always this movie. From a book perspective, I have to think a bit harder about that one, because I've read many books, but probably one book that stands out is A Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. I think this book, while heavy in terms of the length, it's again a story of perseverance, resilience, the human spirit which wins out, and ultimately kindness in the face of unkindness on the part of Nelson Mandela. So those would be my two recommendations.
I will start from movie because books are more complicated for me. I love several of them. Movie, The Lobster. I watched The Lobster. The movie is great.
What's the
The Lobster. It's about utopian society where everyone should live in couple. If you don't find a couple, they transform you in some animal. You just choose. Then the guy choose. So it's very interesting because they have a formula to who should be your partner. So it's very interesting. Someone very competitive. It's like they do the thing that you like to do also. and it's very difficult. And then at certain point, they start faking the qualities and people that they want, and you can see easily how they start adapting and faking things to survive, and
Wow.
our relationship becomes some kind of war zone, and they do everything just to find someone. And if they don't, because they have like time to do it, if they don't, they die. They just transform into other people.
Wow,
And
incredible.
it's incredible. It's incredible. It's a very, very nice book. So, a movie about book. What impacted me more? Those spoke Zarathustra from Nietzsche. I love it. The books about it's a kind of wise guy that came from the mountain with the gospels, like look like Christ, but it's not the thing. And then in this book, Nietzsche is trying to convince us that what we call wrong, like good and evil, is more complicated than that. It's a philosophical book. So wow, it's so great, the book. So the wise man trying to convince everyone that maybe it came early too soon to teach people how to live, and everyone start following him. And a certain part of the book is say, I don't want a follower. If you're following me, you're just doing things that I'm repeating to you. I want people that can think by themselves. So it's a philosophical book, very, very interesting. Why it impacted me? I was young, I was in university, and in university, you have the thing that I call the black belt syndrome. You have someone that you say, okay, he knows how to do things, I just will repeat, and I will do what he do because I want the same result that I have, he does. And from Nietzsche, I learned that the best thing that you can do is find yourself. The art of become what you already are. What you already. Yeah, what you
Mm.
already are. Yeah. So it's impacted me a lot. The way how you can find wisdom through yourself. You don't need people to give it to you. You can do it by your own. And it's good to get lost sometime. And there's no formula. You can do it.
Mm.
Okay, I'm just resuming. This is why it impacted me.
Interesting, interesting. I love having these conversations with you both because a lot you can share. That's why this time I do not intervene because otherwise we're not going to end this conversation.
And
And
and you
on the
didn't
book,
ru-
I recently shared a very nice book to Cindy from Opera, with Wisdom of Sundays, where she interviews a lot of celebrities and people from different fields and provide very valuable insights. And you do not expect them to go through a lot of hardship and how they overcome, and you can feel very relatable to them. I guess it's a very good one if you want. It's one of the most recent one that I'm reading, and it's a very good one. And to finish on this chill question, last one, Cindy and Ivanick, if you could have a dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and what would you ask? What would you just ask them?
For me, that would be
Wow.
Fidel Castro. And I would ask him, how did he persevere in the face of everything which went against him? Um, for me, I know he's not a hero to so many people, but I have to somehow respect his resilience in the world, and Cuba in many respects survived a lot of isolation because of the things that he put into place. So he may not be a favorite with everyone, but I certainly respect the strength that it took to kind of stand his ground and to have a point of view which was not the status quo. So I want to ask him, I would love to ask him, how does he stand this ground? How does he, stay in the face of all of it?
And even Ivanick?
Maybe Patrice Lumumba. I
Wow,
will
that's a
ask
good
him.
one.
I will ask him, what do you feel the moment that you realize that your countrymen, people that you love, they are inside of a conspiracy against you, against the people you want to save? What do you feel? What is the sensation of the betrayed? Did you feel that, okay, I will die? I did everything not for myself, but for the people, and now some of them, they are just against me, no, conspire with people to get me killed. What is the sensation? The betrayal in the eyes, and the sensation that I did everything and somehow they couldn't get it, and they prefer the soft way or the easy way. And now look at you. Something like that.
That's
I
a
will
very
ask him that.
that's a very good one. Cindy, just our last question for you. What advice would you give some professional looking to pursue the same career as you in terms of stakeholder engagement skills and make this last impact in the global health?
I think make sure that you have good mentors who can give you sort of that advice to allow you to navigate, but not just navigate, but also make the right introductions for you, because wherever you are in your stage of career, that mentorship is crucial, but people who will open the door for you is also going to be important. So for me, that's one piece of advice. The second piece of advice is to stay curious. The more open you are, the more questions you ask, you find yourself down areas and avenues that I think you need to go to become a better health professional. And thirdly, know your anchors and stay focused on the goal, which is the person.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here and joining us. Ivanick, I will let you say the final goodbye.
Thank you for the honor. Thank you to have you here, and I'm so glad for all the wise words that you spread here. And I believe that for the people that are listening us, they are very happy because you show some interesting point of view about the personal life, about career, everything that people are just seeking, and me included, I included. Thank you for all your time and your words. I will keep it in my mind. Thank you, and I hope.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you
so
for
much. Have a
having
good
me.
evening, everyone.
Namaste.
Bye.
Bem-vindo ao show, estamos ao vivo no ar. Vozes de longe, sabedoria a compartilhar. Sintonize a vibração, sinta o pulso do ritmo. Ritmos globais se misturam, ouça o mundo dançar.
A linguagem não tem limites, histórias se revelam. De todos os cantos, novas narrativas nos embalam. O coração da terra em cada som encontrado. Reúnam-se amigos, vozes globais ecoando.
Cafuka Talk, onde mundos se conectam. Línguas diferentes, mas com respeito se projetam. Juntos a jornada que vamos trilhar. Nesta centelha vibrante de podcasts iluminar. De continente a continente voamos. Dialetos e culturas que nunca escondemos. Sinta o ritmo, deixe fluir. Cafuka Talk é o lugar para ir. Ecos da terra, por harmonia. Batidas africanas com sinfonia global contagia. Mergulhe na essência de cada nota. No Cafuka Talk sonhos ganham rota. Cafuka Talk, onde mundos se conectam. Línguas diferentes, mas com respeito se projetam. Juntos a jornada que vamos trilhar. faíscas de iluminar.